I just want to welcome everybody to today's First Friday Real Talk. As I hope all of you are aware, we're really focused on trying to figure out how to have a much more significant role and impact in our South Bend-Elkhart community through our diversity, equity, and belonging initiatives. And to that end, I'm sure you're all aware of Durana Bird. She's our Director of Diversity, Equity, and Belonging. And I'll kind of pass the baton over to her quickly so we respect Murdock's time here, but ask her to do the introduction.
Wonderful. Thanks, Chancellor. Yes, I'm excited that we have Murdock with us today. And just a little bit about Murdock. He's a purpose-driven, action-oriented servant leader and proud product, as he mentioned, of the east side of Indianapolis. He's a rising third-year law student at the IU McKinney School of Law and works in the law school's Office of Diversity and Inclusion. He's also the owner of Murdock LLC, a company that's empowering communities to leverage their influence to fuel systemic change. Ultimately, Murdock is in the business of becoming the greatest powerpreneur, and I'm gonna say it again, powerpreneur Indianapolis has ever seen. So everyone help me welcome Murdock. All right, Murdock, thank you so much for joining us.
No, absolutely. My muse is the culmination of a myriad of mess ups turned upside down into a masterpiece of motivation. My inspiration is the indignant spirit of an imbecile, ignited and burned alive. And after a process of heating and cooling, an incredible image within me has been inscribed. My blood runs deep with both stress and success, bruises and breakthroughs, crashes of carelessness, and chambers of courage. My muse sings a song to my soul that is essential and sensical to my sense of self, like the ABCs to an English major, and that's major. My story is not your story, and your story is not mine. We each on own individual journeys and processes towards whatever we're seeking to accomplish, and for me, that is progress. My process towards progress doesn't mimic the rise to fame of someone who was acclaimed. My process towards progress wasn't inspired by someone to whom I aspire. My process towards progress is specific to my slips and trips, my failures flipped, and as y'all can see, the journey to the non-Michigan drip. The process towards progress is me, Anthony Murdock II. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Well, I guess we're good afternoon now. Good afternoon, but I'm thankful to be in front of you all today. I want to make sure I give a special intentional shout out to Miss Bird for this opportunity, for empowering me to come and speak with you all on this afternoon. I am genuinely thankful that while our relationship has just started, you've already empowered me so much more than people who've known me for years and given me a platform to share my message, to empower you all in this moment and motivate you all for the movement. And then secondly, I want to make sure I give a special thank you to Vice President Posey, who, as I talked about during the message of hope I gave a month or so ago, y'all know her as Vice President Posey or as Attorney Posey, but I know her as Professor Posey. She taught me at the IU McKinney School of Law this past semester in our race and law class, and that was one of the most memorable, one of the most phenomenal learning experiences I've had during my academic tenure. I'm a lifelong student, and I'll probably talk about that a little bit later, but she did nothing short of give me inspiration and empowerment. She motivated me to stay the course, and I'll talk about that briefly today as well. But it is incredible in this moment, living in a patriarchy, in a sexist society, in a misogynistic society, that Black women continue to provide incredible and innovative opportunities for all. And I'm a product of that. And it would be wrong of me if I was to begin my remarks to you all today talking about empowering in the moment and motivating for the movement if I didn't first shout out those two incredible Black women who continue to lead and guide us through this moment in this movement to make Black Lives Matter more. Again, thanks for being here today. The title, as was on the flyer, so I won't regurgitate that too much because I know y'all can read, and I'm not gonna read to y'all today. But it's about empowering in the moment and motivating for the movement. And before we dive deep, right, into the pen and pad pieces of today's message. And I hope y'all do have a pen and a pad, because I don't want to just talk that talk to y'all and give you no takeaways. Okay, if I'm going to talk that talk, I'm going to give you some takeaways. So if you got a pen and pad, if you got a pencil or paper, take it out, because we're going to talk that talk. But there's going to be some concrete takeaways that you can take back to the Ivy Tech community in South Bend. Does that sound okay to y'all? This is the other thing. Got a lot of energy. That makes sense. I'm working off like 2 hours of sleep right now. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But I need some energy. So in this chat, I want y'all to be live with me. Let me know when you agree with what I'm talking about. Can I get an amen? Can I get a, yeah, fabulous. Thank you, Ann Louise Price, for saying
Amen.
fabulous. I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, because listen, I'm locked in and clocked into y'all this morning. I'm excited, I got energy. And y'all, this is an incredible moment. This is an incredible moment. And let's all participate today. So when we talk about empowering in the moment and motivating for the movement, we must understand that the difference between the moment and a movement comes through motion. And again, the difference between a moment and a movement is motion. And if we want to go from having a series of moments to generally being motivated for a movement as Murdock LLC will talk about for systemic change, a movement in this country right now in a number of different communities to make Black Lives Matter more. I think we all participate in a number of different movements in our tenure as beings in this global community. And I'm sure that at your campus, there's a movement going on right now. We'll talk a little bit later about what's that been characterized as and what that means in this socio-political moment. But in order to go from moment to movement, there must be motion. And that's why I seek to motivate. That's why we empower in the moment, but motivate for the movement. Because if we're going to go from these instantaneous moments, we're going to go from these individual actions and work towards producing that systemic change that we need, it must not come in simply being inspired and looking in awe and saying, wow, Murdock spoke so well today. No, we need tangible action items that we can use to apply and implement to impact the people that need it. So the difference between between a moment and movement is motion. And that's what we're motivating for this movement today. Because I want to give you things to move, to take motion, and to intentionally transform your environment. Now, practically, for this first part, empowering in the moment, what does that mean? We are in the midst of 2 pandemics. Obviously, the pandemic of COVID-19, which continues to steal, kill, and destroy at levels that are simply unprecedented. We can compare that to the Spanish flu or the pesky flu, as actually as many Black folks in the early 20th century referred to it as in Indianapolis, where I'm from. We can compare it, but this is different. And we know about COVID-19 pandemic, but we also understand we're in the midst of a second pandemic, the pandemic of racism in 2020. And I would unapologetically propose to each of you today that the best way to push past the present pandemics, the way that we must persevere through the pandemonium, is using what I call the process towards progress. That's the first pen and pad piece for y'all. That's the first pen and pad piece. We are going to push past the pandemics of our present. We're going to persevere through the pandemonium on your college campus and for college campuses across this country, and more importantly, communities across our global world, is by using the process towards progress. Murdock, what does that mean? I ain't never heard of that before, brother. Sounds a bit off the tongue, but what does it mean? Remember, you talking that talk, but I need the takeaway. Say less. Break it down for you. The methodology of the process towards progress is very simple. Okay, I'm not a math person. My pastor would always say he doesn't like to do math in public. Neither do I. I'm not even going to use numbers in this equation. But this is a basic math. Patience plus persistence plus purpose equals progress. I'm going to say it again for the people in the back behind those muted mics that ain't paying attention right now. The process towards progress methodology says that patience plus persistence plus purpose equals progress. And I want to give you all principles behind each of these steps and a story that might correlate in order to show how you might be able to apply the process towards progress in your college campus to persevere through the pandemonium and push through the present pandemics. Let's start with patience. So at a methodological level, when we talk about the process towards progress, desire fuels patience, and patience creates our process towards progress. Desire fuels patience, and patience creates our process towards progress. What does that mean? In order for the process towards progress to start, in order for efforts for our communities to persevere through the pandemonium, we must have a desire. And that desire is not like the desire to eat that late night snack that you know you should avoid. That desire is not like that desire to think back to when we were kids in elementary school, to go and talk to that crush that you've been eyeing since the first day of class. That's not the desire I'm talking about. The desire I'm talking about is an intrinsic desire. It's a desire within yourself to say, I want to do this, independent of what best practices might be, independent of what my colleagues in the industry might suggest will be the best move. Because each of our communities have things that make us unique, and we are not copy and paste communities. What works in South Bend does not always work in Indianapolis, does not always work in West Lafayette, does not always work in Jeffersonville, and may not work in Bloomington. This is a unique community, and copying and pasting solutions and principles and problem solving from other places and spaces might work great there, but might not work great here. And that's why understanding that desire is what fuels this patience, which creates the process towards progress. And that desire is intrinsic. It's so important. Let's apply it to real life. Y'all, in case you haven't learned yet, time does not tick according to our clock. Life works on its own clock, and I'm reminded of that every day. I want y'all, and don't say it, because if you tell me that you didn't know, you're lying. Who knew that in 2020, we was going to see what we seeing right now? I mean, goodness gracious. Goodness gracious. Goodness for 2020. I mean, we've been, 2020 was like 2000, the turn of the millennium. You know what I'm saying? People had New Year's resolutions for February. I mean, it was incredible. 2020 gonna be my year. 2020, and then we come through January 1, huh? Corona. What? Pandemic. What? Now we also understand that historically Black Lives Matters, Black lives have been mutilated in the face of white supremacy for generations. So that's nothing new. But again, the way in which these narratives have been amplified is ridiculous. We could have never foreseen this. Time does not tick according to our clock. We couldn't have foreseen what came, but y'all, it's here. It's here. And the energy that we expend not calling things what they are, instead of calling them what they actually are, not calling it what it is instead of calling it like it is, doesn't change what we're experiencing. It just leaves us ill-prepared to fight through, to persevere past the pandemonium. And that's why patience is the first step. You got to have a desire to want to call it like it is. You got to have a desire to want to change your communities. You have to have a desire. You have to have a desire to start that process towards progress. Second piece, and I see the questions in the comment section. I just saw one that came up that I'm definitely going to address once this is over. And I'm not going to talk to y'all for too long. I should be done here in about 7 minutes. And then we can use the rest of our time to speak about questions like what you just asked, because I think that in this moment, I definitely have some words on that topic. So thank you for asking. The second step, first step is patience in the process towards progress. The second step is persistence. Again, behind those muted mics, say persistence, persistence, persistence. Persistence is the second step of the process towards progress. In the same way I gave you all a breakdown of what patience meant within the context of the process towards progress, I'll do the same for persistence. Discipline fuels persistence, and persistence acts as the motor behind our process towards progress. Discipline fuels persistence, and persistence acts as that motor behind the process towards progress. What does this mean? I like to think about a lot that we are all on a journey through life, all of us. I don't care where you're from. I don't care how you identify. I don't care what your parents did or didn't do. I don't care who your best friend is or is not. We're on this journey through life. And I like to analogize a journey through life to a highway. Um, and we are driving down a highway, y'all, that I don't know how it is in South Bend, but in Indianapolis, we got potholes, we have crevices. The road can be rocky. The road can be difficult. The road poses obstacles that are foreseen, that we can predict, and those that are unforeseen. And that is why we must persist. That is why we must persist. And in order to persist, we must understand that prior to persistence comes discipline. And I would argue that discipline in no way must perpetuate these images of patriarchy or misogyny or dominance, or perpetuate these systems of racism or oppression that we internalize and don't even realize we're regurgitating and how we talk about discipline. But discipline can really be personal, inclusive, and purpose-driven. And when we learn how to practice persistence through the lens of a more inclusive and holistic idea of discipline, y'all, that motor that's driving us down life's highway, that motor for our process towards progress will continue. Exactly, Helen, exactly. We're going to talk about that later too, but you're absolutely right, Helen. It's going to continue to run like an engine that's well-oiled all the time. Now, what I do also want to break down, and I want to share a quick story for the students as well, because Ms. Bird explained we got students, faculty, and staff on here. And as y'all talk, during the introduction, they talked about, I'm a student. I'm a law student. That means if I'm a law student now, I was a college student before, high school student before that, and so on and so on. And when we talk about persistence, I always say that persistence requires resistance. Persistence requires resistance. And if persistence requires resistance, and persistence is the second and an extremely important step in the process towards progress, we also understand that resistance is going to come during our process towards progress. So as you drive down life's highway, we're going to experience resistance. And I think in this moment, a lot of different people are experiencing resistance, whether we're talking about an economic resistance. I know that on college campuses across the country, this is difficult. This is a difficult time. And I don't need to re-explain that because I know y'all going through it right now. From budget cuts to job cuts to, even if it's not an economic, social, emotional, y'all, it's difficult to be in isolation when you're intentionally used to being in community. It's difficult to quarantine when you like to be in community. And creating community in virtual spaces like this is great, but it's difficult. These are forms of resistance. I know that when I was in college, I experienced resistance as well. Again, I'll never forget my first semester at Butler in 2014, Butler University in Indianapolis, Indiana. We started a student movement called Bust the Bubble. Bubble was an acronym for Believe and Understand the Butler Bubble Limits Everyone. And our mission was and continues to be to promote the perspectives of students of color at predominantly white institutions through diversity education, cultural awareness, and action-oriented activism. And that was birthed in a moment that turned into a movement because we had motion. And what was that motion? It was when we participated in a Black Lives Matter protest on our campus. And there was Black students, there was white students, Latinx students, Asian students. We had folks across the gender and sexuality spectrums, folks in different socioeconomic statuses. It was an incredible demonstration of affirmation that Black lives do matter in a world that tells them that they don't. Because that's why Black lives matter, because we live in a world that tells them that they don't. And we must be intentional in messaging, in reminding, and telling people and affirming people in a world that minimizes and scrutinizes and commits actions of violence against with so much intention. We must more intentionally affirm their lives. And in response to that, we got death threats. In response to that, we were targeted in our classrooms, targeted in our dorms. It was, what a time to be alive. And it was a kind of discrimination, it's a kind of racism I had never experienced before. But in that moment of protesting, we understood as founders that there was a movement that needed to ensue, and that movement came through motion. And we could not have moved if we didn't understand that persistence required resistance. We understood that this movement called Bust the Boat, which was founded in 2014 and continues to grow and live on in much more beautiful and amazing ways in 2020, in the leadership of young Black women on that campus right now, we couldn't have gotten there if we didn't understand that if we want to get to a movement from this moment, it's going to require some resistance. We must persist. And that's what I share with you all today. That's the second step, persistence. We must persist, y'all. And persistence is not easy, but because it requires resistance. But as we know, like in the gym, when you do exercises that require resistance, what happens is that weight doesn't change. But over time, if you remain consistent in that discipline, as my good friend would say, remaining consistent in your discipline in your consistency, that weight that was at one time difficult to get off your chest is easy. And what used to be your max becomes your warm-up. And what I'm saying is that in this socio-political moment, when you are able to practice persistence during your process towards progress, you will push past the pandemonium. You will persevere past the pandemics, because what used to be a max becomes a warm-up. What used to be a max becomes a warm-up. The third step, I'm bringing it home. I'm bringing it home for y'all. Third step is purpose. Third step is purpose. Direction fuels purpose, and purpose acts as the steering wheel during your process towards progress. Direction fuels purpose, and purpose acts as the steering wheel during your process towards progress. Again, we're navigating down life's highway, right? Navigating down life's highway. I don't know about y'all, so I had to make a long drive recently. I won't tell you where I went because that's not the point. I had to make a very long drive, very, very, very long drive. And I'm on this highway, right? Because life is a highway, like I talked about earlier. And y'all, I had a GPS. And this was a long drive, And I don't know about y'all if y'all ever made a long drive before, but sometimes when you're driving for a long time, you feel like you're seeing the same thing over and over again. The same corn, the same exit signs, the same white lines on the street that dictate the lanes. You feel like you see the same trees, the same sky, the same clouds, the same passenger or no passenger, hear the same noise from your engine. Everything seems the same. And that's how it felt when I was driving. But you know what was powerful? I had a GPS. And no matter how similar, no matter how same my setting might have seemed, I knew I was going to get to my destination because that GPS always reminded me. And I would like to analogize the GPS as we drive down the highway from our most recent trip. Your purpose is your life's GPS. Your purpose is your life's GPS. It gives you direction. It helps you. It's literally that steering wheel, because that motor is running because you're practicing persistence. And that trip has started because you're practicing patience. But if you just keep going through I don't know if y'all got roundabouts in South Bend. I think y'all do, because everybody ain't got roundabouts. I think roundabouts are great, but that's a different conversation for a different day. If you go through a roundabout, you can drive for 10 hours in a roundabout. You ain't going nowhere. You expending that gas. You got your foot on that gas. You are pushing on that pedal, but you ain't going nowhere at all. You driving in circles. Same thing on the highway. If you don't know where you're finna get off to get to your next spot, guess what? You're not gonna get there. You're gonna keep driving down the highway from 70 to 240 to 51 to 73 to you'll keep driving, you know where you're going. And part of what purpose does is that GPS. It's that steering wheel that's leading and guiding on that process towards progress. At a principle level, what is purpose? I'm gonna give you 3 tidbits. Another pen and pad moment. Pencil and paper, get it out. I got you. Purpose is who you are, it's what you do, and it's where you're going. It's who you are, it's what you do, and it's where you're going. Murdock is a purpose-driven, action-oriented servant leader and proud product of Indianapolis, Indiana. Regardless of who I'm in a room with, regardless, from Billy Bob Joe to Janine Janae, I'm in that room and I'm a purpose-driven, action-oriented servant leader and proud product of Indianapolis, Indiana. Purpose is who you are, is what you do. I'm a rising third-year law student at the I. McKinney School of Law and humbly serve as the assistant to the law school's Office of Diversity and Inclusion. I'm the owner of Murdock LLC. I'm also the president of a nonprofit called Power Moves On. That's what I do. Regardless of where I go, that's what I do. Purpose is who you are, it's what you do, and it's where you're going. I'm in the business of becoming the greatest powerpreneur Indianapolis has ever seen. I don't care if I'm in the worst of moments, like trying to persevere through 2 pandemics, one of the best of moments when I graduated high school and hugged my mom and my sister and my pops and my other younger sister, and they cried with me. And shoot, I almost shed tears with them. I don't care how beautiful or how blighted the moment is. Your purpose, we got to know your purpose, who you are, what you're doing, where you're going. And in this moment, as you work to persevere through the pandemic, what is your purpose? What is your purpose in your office? What is your purpose on your team? What is the purpose to the demographic that you serve most immediately? And more than your career, because we're humans outside of work. We're humans outside of class. Well, what is your purpose in this life? And as we talk about persevering through the pandemic, pushing past the pandemonium, empowering in the moment, gotta understand your purpose, y'all. You gotta understand your purpose. Purpose will help you break through glass ceilings when you thought the sky was the limit. Purpose will help you break through glass ceilings when you thought the sky was the limit. Purpose acts as an accountability tool to remind you of what you knew you were, but forgot because of the stress in your current moment. And pushing through two pandemoniums of the present, y'all, it gets stressful. I'm stressed right now. I'm stressed right now. And me understanding my purpose helps me to remember that nobody can limit my potential. I don't care what moment we're in. And no one can limit my potential, and no one can limit your potential, because your purpose that's motivating that potential, that's empowering that potential, comes from something that's greater than your greatest hater, that's drinking on that haterade, and is greater than your greatest motivator, who's always behind you. It comes from something greater than that. And your purpose holds you accountable to driving down that life's highway. So those first three steps: patience, persistence, and purpose. When you empower in the moment, those three steps of the process towards progress, that's how you do it. Now, as my good friend of mine says, if we land this plane, as I bring this to a close, so we can open up for a more robust discussion, because I see that y'all are in this chat, and I appreciate it. Let me know if you're in the chat liking what I'm saying. I told y'all I got a lot of energy. Let me know if you hear, you feeling what I'm talking about, because I appreciate the fact that I have this opportunity to talk to y'all. Empowering the moment, right? Understanding the power that we have in this present predicament, Y'all, patience, persistence, and purpose. But guess what? This is called empowering the moment and motivating for the movement. So Murdock, talk that talk. Motivate me for the movement. Say less. Say less. The first three steps, patience, persistence, plus purpose, you know what that equals? Listen, in an equation, when 1 + 1 is here, that equals 2. 1 + 1 equals 2. I don't care how you draw your one. I don't care if you want to put it upside down, side to side, put it underneath something, overneath something. Overneath, not even a word. I made it up right now. 1 + 1 equals 2. 2 is dependent upon 1 + 1. Why do I mention that to you today? Because the process towards progress is set up the same. If you want to see progress, because we're on this process towards progress, to push through the pandemonium, to persevere through the pandemic, to empower in the moment and to motivate the movement, we're on this process towards progress. And y'all, if you're practicing patience and persistence and purpose, patience plus persistence plus purpose, 1 + 1 + 1, y'all, that's going to equal progress. Just like 1 + 1 + 1 equals 3, y'all, those 3 steps are going to equal progress. I don't care how you put it. I don't care how you put it. I don't care how you put it. It's going to equal progress. And as we talk about, again, landing this plane, I want to encourage you all that life ain't picture perfect, but it's worth the picture still. Life is not picture perfect, but it's worth the picture still. Y'all, motivating the movement, that motion, to go from a moment to a movement, comes in understanding that you have what you need right now. You have what you need right now. No matter how dark and depressing and desolate it might seem, you have what you need right now. I know on your campus, similar to mine, folks seem under-resourced, because the folks are. It takes so much to impact people's lives. So much. I know you can't put a dollar on it, but we can say that to better impact people's lives, we need resources to be able to do so. And in the midst of not one, but 2 pandemics, colleges and across this country are having difficulty being able to appropriate the proper resources, whether that's economic, social, mental, emotional, structural, to help and empower people like yourselves to do what they do best, whether that's studying in those classrooms or teaching those students or empowering agents across your campus. It's difficult right now. It's difficult. But what I'm sharing with you, I'm making a daring proclamation. Not a sin-filled, but an unapologetic suggestion that we are who we need in times such as these. And that life may not be picture perfect, but it's worth the picture still, y'all. Y'all, in this equation, this methodology called the process towards progress is when you practice patience, persistence, and purpose, whatever comes after that is going to be progress. And it may not look like what you thought it was, but who knew right now it's going to look the way that it did? How are we going to be out here calling a success right now what we thought the 2019 vision for 2020 was? No wonder why people are so confused. We're in the middle of pandemics. We're in the middle of pandemics. Adjusting your expectations during your process towards progress is essential to success. And if we continue to have pictures for the future that don't match history's past, you're going to continue to be frustrated. So adjust. And even in adjusting, using this process towards progress, empowering in the moment, understanding that motivation for the movement comes to understanding you are who we need in times like these. That's what you need. You are who we need in times like these. I want to end this. And again, I don't know if it's any students on the call. Is any students on the call? I just want to put it out there. Is any students? If y'all here, y'all mind shouting me out in the chat, or not shouting me out? But are there any students on here, Ms. Bird?
It is some students on there. I see them.
Okay, cool. Blessings, blessings, blessings. So look, and again, I ain't saying just the students, because y'all may know this too, but I know students for a fact gonna know this. So y'all, I'm a huge hip hop fan. Love hip hop. Hip hop is a part of my identity. As a young Black man in these divided states of America, I feel as though hip hop gives me an opportunity to articulate myself, and it gives me an opportunity to hear other people's voices that affirm my identity. And for any hip hop fans in the chat, whether you're a student, faculty, staff, or administrator, then I want to let y'all know I was, Juice WRLD dropped the album today called Legends Never Die. Pop Smokes, I think, released last week. And he, the name of the album was beautiful, right? He talked about aim for the stars, you can land on the moon. And both of those young Black men, young Black men, were taken from this world way too soon. Why do I bring them up? For a similar reason, I'm bringing up Breonna Taylor. Okay, Kevin, that's fine. I respect it, Kevin. You're going to learn about hip hop today, brother. Kevin, you're going to learn about hip hop today, and that's fine. But thanks for leaving that comment, though, Kevin. I appreciate you. For the same reason I bring up Pop Smoke and Juice when I bring up Breonna Taylor. And it's the fact that she was unlawfully gunned down. And for a no-knock warrant, for a crime nobody committed, and she definitely didn't commit, at the hands of people who were tasked with serving and protecting. She was not served. She was definitely not protected. However, I bring up Pop Smoke, Juice WRLD, and Breonna Taylor because through their deaths came life. Again, if y'all don't listen to Juice WRLD, I know some students in the chat probably do, some of the people out here do. Legends Never Die. He talks about the fact that even through his death, now he didn't know this, obviously, but even through his death, he gave life. Through the struggles he was having mentally and emotionally, as a young Black man making millions of dollars, he experienced difficulty. And even through that, he understood that my story is going to last much longer than I'm here on earth. He didn't know he was going to leave so soon, but his albums and his words continue to impact people's lives. Same thing with Pop Smoke. Aim for the stars and land on the moon? My God, brother, it's incredible. That's incredible. He's talking about there's so much more there's a universe of everlasting potential out there. And we need to aim for what we can't even see. Because when we do that, even if you don't aim and hit that, you're going to drop on something that's fantastic. And the same with Breonna. He gave life to people's dreams. And Breonna Taylor gave life to a movement that's charging people to make Black Lives Matter more. It is unfortunate. It is disgusting that these three folks, these beautiful people, passed the way that they did. And it's disgusting. It is so sad, the fact that so many people on these campuses don't have the resources. There's death we're experiencing on our campuses. Death of support, death of resource, death of opportunity. Because of these pandemics, that ain't our fault. But again, I'm telling you that through death comes life. Because life is a cyclical process. One of my favorite rappers, Big Sean, talks about life is a giving process. The cycle of life is a life-giving process. And y'all, that's what we're going through right now. We're going through a life-giving process. through the pandemics of the past, we have power in our present, a power to be empowered in a movement, in a motivated movement. Y'all, I'm a 24-year-old Black man from Indianapolis, Indiana. Y'all, I told you I'm bringing it home. I'm done. I'm working off 2 hours of sleep. Because I work at Amazon by night. I work at Amazon by night for 40 hours. And I work at a law school by day. I manage 2 different businesses. Y'all, I got to the crib at 7 a.m. And it was here at this spot to go and talk to some kids after I'm done with y'all at noon. But I'm here. Did I think that in 2020, this is what my world was going to look like? Absolutely not. I tell you, Miss Bird, I did not. I did not think I was going to be putting these 20-hour days, sleep deprived by the time I get to the weekend. I didn't. But y'all, I'm here. I'm here. And I'm here with you. Had these pandemics not occurred, I couldn't have been talking to y'all right now. I'm a 24-year-old Black man from Indianapolis, Indiana, the world's largest small city, talking to a group of people from South Bend and Ivy Tech. I shouldn't be here. Statistics say I should be dead and gone years ago, but I'm here speaking life into you. And I'm thankful. I'm thankful for that opportunity. I'm thankful for that opportunity. And if I was so focused on the fact that I'm working jobs, I don't feel like I got to work to be able to survive in this moment, I miss on opportunities to empower and work with you. Never forget, Murdock is about we and not me. And there's not one moment I don't spend not thinking about us. And this, my friend, was another random but relevant moment with Murdock. Thank y'all so much for this opportunity. I appreciate y'all. I appreciate y'all. I appreciate y'all. I'm done.
Thank you so much, Murdock. I appreciate that. We are going to see if there's some things that came to you in the chat individually. I do have one question that I will read from the chat. Sure. And the question is, how do you know if you have practiced the appropriate patience in a given situation to then push through the step in persistence?
How do you know? That's a fantastic question. I love that. I love that a lot. How do you know when you're doing it right? You know what? I don't know who asked that question. It don't even matter.
That was Bill.
Bill, thank you, Bill. Thanks for asking, Bill. Appreciate you. Good afternoon, Bill. So here's what I'm gonna share, brother. I'm gonna analogize it to a recipe. Okay? Analogize it to a recipe. If we want to make a fantastic pound cake, Doc, that takes a process. And you know what? The thing about a pound cake is, I know you know. The thing about a pound cake is there's a recipe for pound cake, but just because you do the recipe don't mean the pound cake don't taste the right way. Does that make sense, Doc? You gotta make that pound cake, put them ingredients together a certain kind of way to make that pound really pound and hit for that cake. What does that have to do with the process towards progress and what you just asked about? How do you know when you're practicing that patience appropriately? You only make that great pound cake because you practice, Doc. Man, my mama gives me every year for my birthday, every single time, I want a lemon pound cake. And the lemon pound cake that I eat every year I see Jesus. When I eat that joint, I see God, Doc. I mean, when it hits my tongue, it changes my life. But I understand that while that cake might be amazing today, 10 years ago, she wasn't making it. Well, she may have been 10 years ago because she was bomb.com. But 20 years ago, Doc, when she was my age, that cake didn't taste the same way that it did today. She had to get there. It took trial and error. It took a process towards progress just to do that. And that's what I'm telling you today, Doc. You know you're practicing patience appropriately when you have a true desire. That's why it starts with desire. Now, in order to get from patience to persistence appropriately, man, it's going to take some trial and error, Doc. It's going to take some time to say that, dang, I feel like I'm doing this right. But at the same time, I'm not getting the results that I want. And sometimes we got to go through a process of what I said earlier. The fact we have impractical expectations. And sometimes the reason why you feel like the desire that you're practicing to practice that patience to get the persistence and purpose to get the progress ain't hidden, because you still have a jacked up idea of what your progress looks like. And that comes through a different conversation about decolonizing our mind, understanding the depths of our experience as people in different communities, and then asking ourselves, why do we have this idea of success in the first place? Who shaped our idea of what we're supposed to be? Who told you patience is supposed to look a certain kind of a way? When it starts with desire that's intrinsic, and ain't got to do with nobody else. Does that make sense, Bill?
It makes perfectly good sense. Thank you.
No, absolutely.
Murdock, I have Mike put a statement and a question in here, so I'll just read it. It says, I love the equation patience plus persistence plus purpose equal progress. I can see how it would work for individuals. The challenge is, how do we use this equation as a system, as a campus? We have to have a shared purpose, then help each other with patience and persistence. Recognize when someone is struggling with patience and be patient with them. How do we use this equation? What Mike says is very true. We have to do that as one, and that's what that's what we need to get to. So what other thoughts do you have on that, Murdock?
Absolutely. Mike, a fantastic question, Doc. Fantastic question. Thank you for asking, for engaging in the chat. And again, generally, there's so many comments in here. Thank y'all so much. I want to say thank y'all for engaging in the chat. Mike, to that point, I want to say a couple of things to that. First, Mike, you have agency. You have power. You have influence. You make impact. Regardless of whether or not that's the narrative, that's the case. And what we see now in the world, and I want to, Ms. Bird, I want to make sure that before this ends, I want to touch on the question I got privately about why Black Lives Matter instead of All Lives Matter. Like, I want to make sure that I definitely address that in public.
Okay,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. And the reason I bring it up is because it relates to that. And it's that we understand that racism and white supremacy are not individual actions. Those are systemic. We understand that racism is not one person doing something else to one person. Those actions that we see, those instances of discrimination, are products of systems that support systems, that make Black Lives Matter less in these divided states of America. And so when we talk about racism and white supremacy, or sexism and misogyny, or transphobia and homophobia, or poverty and classism and ageism, these are systems. These are systems that, yes, in many ways are fueled by individual people's actions, but are predicated upon a system and systems that inhibit and purport these particular ideas. Now, how do we bring it down to an individual level to bring about the systemic change? Y'all, we have to have people who first understand the fact that we're operating inside of systems. Understand the agency and the power you have to continue to enforce particular systems. Mike, when you are not patient with yourself, you're contributing to your campus not having progress. Mike, when you're not persistent with yourself, you're contributing to your campus not being able to practice persistence. Mike, when you forget your purpose, you're contributing to your campus not seeing progress. And here's the other thing. We have to understand the resources we already have. I said earlier, we are what we need. Ivy Tech has a mission. Your campus has a mission. To what extent does the practices in your own individual team actually support that mission? And we got to ask ourselves that. Who even knows the mission? I don't know Butler's mission. I went there for 4 years, paid tuition for 4 years. I don't know Butler's mission. And that's no shade to Butler. Butler was far from a perfect place, but it was a perfect place for me. It gave me what I need to become the man I am today, sitting in front of you talking. Had I not gone through what I went through in 2014, 2015, 2016, and 2017, I couldn't be talking like I am today, giving these takeaways. So I'm not saying I ain't needed, but Doc, that's a product. That's a product of what we're experiencing right now. And so when you talk about how do you get campuses to understand this process towards progress, y'all, you can't expect the campus to do it if the people not doing it. And here's the other thing. People oftentimes talk about things trickle down from the top. Y'all, let's look at herstory. And I say herstory because his story comes from the perspective of folks who have always been in power. But the truth comes from the mouths of the oppressed. And when we talk about the historical self of her that Claudia Rankin talks about in Citizen, that's why I say herstory, because I'm dedicated to, as a Black man, using my privilege and my platform to speak about her story, a story that's been neglected from these systems that continue to produce justice for the criminals in gray suits and crispy white shirts. That's why I talk about herstory. And y'all, if we are to move forward with the new future, we must contradict the experiences of history and write her stories forward, her story's perspective moving forward. And that comes with understanding, y'all, that we have agency as individuals. And it's when individuals work together and understand the power that they have as people, they create systems. And those systems from the bottom change the systems at the top. So Mike, don't feel powerless because you feel like those at the top, quote unquote, or those who have the power to change aren't changing. Because Mike, that's not how change works, Doc. That's not how change works. Change is a grassroots attempt. That's how it works. It starts with people making decisions that they want to see a change. And you know who those people are? The people whose stories are neglected. Her story, those perspectives, the mouths of the oppressed. So Mike, I ask you, you talking about how do we get a campus to understand the process towards progress, not individuals? I ask you back, who are you empowering in their own process towards progress whose mouths have been muted like y'all behind these mics? And it's when you begin to do that, you begin to see cultural transformations that lead to institutional change. Too often we seek to make institutional change without addressing the culture that's inhibiting the change that we seek. And those cultures start with honoring people's truth in their past, in their present, and the promise in their future. And so, Mike, I challenge you, as we talk about how do we encourage the process towards progress at Ivy Tech, at this campus specifically, at an institutional level, begin being the person to create that culture. And you know what that comes with? Supporting Black women like Miss Bird. And I have to challenge each of you that. To what extent are you using your platform to support the mission and the vision of this Black woman in this space? An incredible Black intellectual. I'm bringing it home, Miss Bird and Mike. Thank you for that question, but I get passionate, as y'all can see from this hour. An incredible Black intellectual once said that Black women are the most disrespected, the most neglected, the most disrespected, and the least protected. What are you doing to respect, to not neglect, and protect more? How are you using your agency, Mike, to do that? Because that's going to produce a cultural transformation that brings about that institutional change you're asking in this process towards progress. Does that make sense?
You make a lot of sense. You are so much wiser than I am. I'm twice your age and you're so much wiser.
No, I'm just here.
Murdock, I have a question that kind of leads to, this is from a student now. After you do this one, then go to the question that you got privately. But this is from our student who is actually the president of our Black Student Union.
Hello.
That's Kirsten. And her question is, how do we get students to find and develop their own purpose?
Hey, Kirsten, first of all, it's a pleasure to meet you. I commend you on your leadership, especially in this moment. So I want to make sure before I offer my answer to your question, I commend you. All right, and I encourage you. You better get it. You better be on that treadmill, making it make sense. I seek you. I love it. I love it. And listen. I want you to think. I'm gonna answer your question with a metaphor, okay? Like I keep doing on this call. The same way you walk on that treadmill right now, burning those calories. I want you to analogize that thing you do on that treadmill, and the calories you burning are the white supremacy and racism you burn on your campus. Does that make sense? I want you to think about it. You are burning systems of institutional oppression, just like you burn them calories on that treadmill right now. Does that make sense? In the same way in which, in the middle of that workout, you feel like you ain't got nowhere at all. When you look at that odometer, that thing that says you've been running for 2 miles, it's a reminder. It's a reminder. And I want to remind you, this speech today, this Moments of Murdock was a reminder to you that the same way you started on that treadmill, not right now, but before, you're going to finish, my sister. And you're getting close with every step. And you're going to be sweaty. It's going to hurt. You're going to hate it. You're going to wish you was at the crib, laying down watching Netflix in your blanket and your robe. You're going to wish you was doing it. But you're not there because you know that through what you're going through right now, you're going to see a better benefit, right? You're going to see a better benefit. Does that first make sense, my sister?
Yes. Perfect.
Okay, fantastic. So second, how do we get students to find and develop their purpose? Here's the thing, Kirsten. Here's the thing. So I help entrepreneurs, I help companies, I help individuals do it. Guess what? Something I tell them that I think separates me as a coach is I'm not helping them find or develop their purpose. I'm not helping them develop their purpose. I'm just dragging it out because it's already there. Too often you got people coming on these platforms trying to speak life into people, and that's what I hope I've done to y'all today. But here's the other thing. What I'm saying today is simply a reminder that you already got what you need. When you always live a life thinking you don't have it, of course you're gonna think that you need something else. But your purpose is inside of you. Your purpose is already there. And we have to remind students of that. So often look, I'm a young Black man, you feel me? Like I know PhDs and I know drug dealers. I know people who gonna be in prison for the rest of their life, and I know people who gonna be free. And it started with here. Shoot, I know people behind bars right now that's more free than I am talking to you. And it's partly because they came to our realization of the power agency they had inside first. We live in a world that constantly, this is gonna be a perfect segue into why Black Lives Matter and not all lives matter. We live in a world that constantly tells us that we're not enough. We live in a world that constantly tells us that we don't matter. And you talk about how do you help students find, develop their own purpose? It's already inside of them. You just gotta remind them. And we don't have enough reminders. Now we understand that students come from different perspectives, You got to be able to remind people differently. And I think that reminding comes through relationship. Reminding comes through understanding these students have different experiences, different trauma that triggers them constantly. And you know what? Sometimes being around with people that don't look like you, it's going to trigger you. And it should. Because you look at her street's past, it's triggering to be in a room full of people that don't look like you because things happen terribly when that happens. But we also understand that there's Mikes in the world. There's Kevins who listen to screaming guitars but don't have problems with hip hop. And there's people like the person who messaged me privately, and you messaged me privately, so I'm gonna put your name on blast, who are asking me these questions, not because I don't even think you don't think that Black Lives Matter, but I think you want to do a breakdown systemically as to why we must proclaim that in this moment. And if we're always coming from a perspective that doesn't address our current predicament, people are gonna continue to miss. We gotta be real about what's happening right now. We gotta be real. And that comes through relationships. And so my sister, as I bring this plane home, as I land this plane, what I tell you, an action item, a takeaway, because I've been talking that talk to you, but I got to give you a takeaway. Something you can apply to your people. And here's what I'm going to tell you. You help students find and develop their purpose 2 ways. By never forgetting yours. That's the first thing. Never, ever forgetting yours. Never forgetting yours. And also understanding that finding and developing purpose in these institutions, we have different markers for success. We have outcomes, we have objectives that say, because we did this and because this happened, we were successful. You have got to stop having images of success that are predicated upon supremacy's past. And too often we don't think our students know and develop their purpose because we're measuring them on objectives and outcomes that don't relate to their reality. Y'all, the one reason I never bring up statistics in my articles or in my speeches is because when I bring up a statistic, why would I bring up a statistic to the people who are the statistics? That makes me feel like a number. And I haven't felt made like a number all my life. And I don't want people to feel like they are numbers. We are stories. We are people with agency and power. And so when you talk about how do you get your students to find and develop their purpose, it comes with first never forgetting yours. Never forgetting yours. Because you can't pour from an empty cup. And if you are purposeless trying to put purpose into people, they're going to be purposeless too. That's why loving yourself is a revolutionary action, because you're worth a revolution. We've had revolutionaries of the past who have changed our history books, who have finally written us onto the narrative, and they didn't love themselves because of the supremacy that surrounded them. Imagine if they loved themselves, how much more amazing the revolution could have been, how much more amazing this world we could have been living in, a world that maybe where Black lives did matter. But we didn't have that because we weren't taught to love ourselves. And so I'm making a daring declaration to you today to love yourself and to remind yourself of your purpose. And when you do that, your students are going to find and develop theirs too. And even beyond that, don't let what finding their purpose looks like be a replication of supremacy's past. Let it be something of history's future. And there, I think you'll find that you have what you need. It's about looking at the situation differently. Does that make sense? Okay, fantastic. I love the fact you're on this treadmill right now. You are such an encouragement. Shout out to you. I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay? Keep going on that treadmill like you do through life, okay?
Thank you. Yes.
Okay. So last thing. Yeah, so I see you. I see you in this chat. So first of all, thank you so much for asking this question about, about why Black Lives Matter and not all lives matter. And I know we got 6 minutes left. And here's what I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna tell you 3 things. 2 things I think that Miss Bird is going, I think Miss Bird probably gonna appreciate all 3 of them. But I think the way I say the 3rd part, she's gonna be like, okay, Mr. Murdock, understood. But you know, she and I talked on the phone before this, and she understands where I'm coming from. And again, I'm a young Black man raised in these divided states of America. When I get on my social media, I see myself getting mutilated and murdered, like social media ads. And even as much as I see myself, Black women see themselves even more in that predicament, and we don't even amplify them, let alone Black folks who are trans or non-binary or gender non-conforming. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And so when we talk about why do Black lives matter and not all lives matter, a few things. Yes, first of all, Ann Price, that's a great way to break it down. When we talk about Black Lives Matter, when I take off my glasses, I'm getting serious. Black Lives Matter is a declaration that sits in a context. I don't care if you go to the bank, you go to church, you go to the grocery store, you go for a jog. throughout history, his story, the white man's story, the white man not being individual white men like Mike, but the white man being the historical self. Y'all got to read Citizen by Claudia Rankine. Y'all got to read Citizen by Claudia Rankine. If you don't like me, you don't like how I'm coming, fine. Go and read a book. Books that affirm the message I'm talking about, because that's where I get my reality from my experiences and from books of people talking about their experiences. And she's one of those people talking about their experiences. Citizen by Claudia Rankine. She talks about the historical self. And we talk about his story, the white man's story. When we talk about the intersections, shout out to Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw, the intersections of gender and race. The white man is the intersection of both of those things, just like the black woman. And when you are benefiting from both racism and patriarchy all the time, what's been written in these textbooks, what's been written in these news outlets, what's being written in music that we listen to, in the social media pages, in the algorithms that we follow, on the commercials that you watch, in the conversation that we've had, it continues to amplify a particular perspective. A perspective that does not look like me. That does not look like me. And so when we talk about Black Lives Matter, to even suggest that Black lives don't matter, but all lives matter, is only perpetuating the idea that Black lives don't matter. It is only perpetuating the systemic oppression of our past, our present, and problematically our future, because of the systems in which we live. And you have to understand that Black Lives Matter is not as much of an indictment of white supremacy and racism, but it's also an affirmation to the people who don't feel like they matter. In the same way that many white folks say all lives matter in response to Black Lives Matter because they feel like their lives don't when people say Black Lives Matter, you gotta understand Black Lives Matter are written in people who have not been made to matter. And that's not a matter of perspective, but there are more people of color in prison in this country, and specifically Black folks in this country in prison than are representative in the population. What in the world? What in the world? There are things like the school to prison pipeline, that there are people who figure out how many kids can't read, how many Black kids can't read in the 3rd grade to decide how many prison beds to make them. We're investing more in incarceration than education. And you wonder why we get to where we are now when folks are being fed these ideas and affirmed by degrees. Feel like when they get out into the public, they can talk that talk like they actually making sense when it's skewed from a perspective because it's predicated upon systems in which certain lives don't matter. And those lives are Black. And so the first reason why Black lives must matter and not all lives matter is because we're not saying that white folks' lives don't matter. That's not what we're saying, but that's not the freaking conversation. That's not the conversation, because you know where you know that white people's lives matter? Because that's the other thing. All lives matter means that white lives matter. It's gonna be real. Just set it in the context of what's reality. You can look on the news and know that your life matters. You can look in the history books and know that your life matters. You can talk to your peers. You can look at professional standards and know that your life matters. But when I try and go and jog in my neighborhood, I get shot. When I try and drive, like I drove here, because I got to go and talk to these kids right after we're done. When I drove here and I get pulled over, I get shot. When I go to church and I pray, I get shot. When I'm on my way to the grocery store to eat, I get shot. And so when you tell me that all lives matter and not Black lives matter, you are muting my reality. And that doesn't happen for yours, because it continues to be amplified. And I had to learn it to get to where I am today. I had to master your history to be able to speak my truth. Let that sit. Do you know how many hoops I had to jump through just to meet Miss Bird? And how many hoops she had to jump through to talk to you? And how many hoops we had to jump through to get on this call today? And if you were to tell me that you care about my life, that you love me, and that you appreciate me, and how can I help? And that's on your social media, or on your papers, or on your conversation that all lives matter, you about as bad as in police officers we protesting in the streets. Because you're killing me. You're killing my story. You're killing my reality. You're killing me. You are part of the problem. And if you don't take it for me, if you don't take it from me, take it from history's past and read the book. There's so many people asking, how can I help? You know how you can help? Do your homework. because I have to do mine to talk to you today. So I dare you to do the same. Do your homework. And I ain't finna tell you what books to read because there's too many people on your social media feeds amplifying those messages. And the same thing I have to do to pay $100,000 to talk to you today, to read the books to talk to you today, to put on this shirt to talk to you today, to comb my hair to talk to you today, to pick up my beard to talk to you today, to exfoliate my face to talk to you today. I want you to go read a freaking book. Read an article. Black lives matter. And when you say that all lives matter, you know what happens? You're muting our reality. I know it's one-on-one, and I actually have to go talk to these kids at 1 o'clock. I just got very excited, Miss Bird. So please forgive me. I took my glasses off. I'm putting my glasses back on.
It's okay, Murdock. We appreciate you being here, and as somebody put in the chat, being authentic, being real with us. Everybody on the call, I'm sure, has learned a lot from you. As Mike said, you come in younger than a lot of us, but you really have the passion and what everybody needs. And so we're so happy that you were able to share with us today. Certainly people are wondering how to reach you and how to get in contact with you for questions at a later time. And so I'll be able to share that with them. And we did record this so we can share it with our campus and others. And so if I just don't know, you've done an amazing job, and I'm thanking you for kicking off our first Fridays. Don't be surprised if we contact you again for another something, activity, anything like that. But we're so grateful that you were here today. Everybody in the chat saying thank you. Kirsten, she gave her email as our president of Black Student Union. I'm sure she would love an opportunity to talk to you and help move her organization, forward. So thank you all so much for joining us today. And thank you again, Murdock, for being with us today.
Yes,
Hey,
thank you.
y'all. Thank y'all so much. Y'all have a fantastic day. I love y'all. Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you.